Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. A lot of things to talk about. Lazio did play the last friendly match against Malaga before the Supercoppa Italiana against Juventus that will be next Sunday. Lucas Leiva finally played from the first minute. Keita as well played. And there's a lot of things to talk about: the new players, injury, and of course all your questions. This is Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, and with me there is the brave heart of Lazio, Alasdair McKenzie. Hello, Alasdair.
Oh, I do like that nickname. We've got to keep that. Every introduction every week now has got to be the brave heart of Lazio. I'm doing well. I'm quite excited now, actually, because this is the last podcast, I suppose, we're going to have for quite a long time now without competitive football. And as much fun as pre-season has been, it's quite good to be aiming towards the real thing again. And like you said, only a week to go until the Supercoppa, and we finished in the best way possible with another friendly win and against another good team. So impressive yesterday again from Lazio. And also, it's the biggest trophy I've ever seen, I think. I mean,
yeah, you're right.
I've never heard of this trophy before, but I'm very happy we've won it because it looks like it's worth as much as Keita.
I don't think they were able to bring it in the plane, though. I think it's still in Malaga.
Oh, no. I'm very sorry to hear that. No, but yeah, it's a good win for Lazio, a really good goal, another clean sheet, lots of positives. Again, I've said it before, so I'll say it again. I always try not to get too excited about what happens in friendly matches, but with Lazio winning every single game in pre-season, and that including games against, Serie A team, Bundesliga team, and a La Liga team, you've got to be quite encouraged by how things are coming together. So, what stood out for you the most, Peter? What were you most impressed with?
Well, it was a good match. I still saw, and maybe more yesterday than against Bayer Leverkusen, some mistakes in the midfield. I think we're going to talk about later. But yeah, that was my biggest concern. Players like Lulic, for example, have very good matches, but then have some matches where they pretty much make mistakes every time they pass the ball, which is very dangerous. And yesterday, especially in the first half, it did it often. But apart from that, I thought Lazio played very well. It was good to see Lucas Leiva starting. I don't think he's fit as the other players, but we still saw something of him. So globally, I'm pleased. I thought Lazio could have won better with maybe more goals, but in the end, it's a good test. And there were a couple of things I would like to talk because I thought were very interesting about that match.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, I don't know if you noticed, was that Lazio is playing with a 3-5-2, okay, but the biggest difference compared to last year is that the two, let's call it wingers, when the opposite team have the ball, they are now in line with the three defenders. So basically Lazio is playing a 5-3-2, and so they don't attack very high the ball. They give space and try to avoid the space behind them. So that's the biggest change, probably because Felipe Anderson is not playing there again. So Lulic and Marusic have more this thing. But that's an important thing, especially thinking about how Lazio allowed goals in the end of last season. Most of the time there were a striker cutting from the wing to the center and no one catching him. So probably this is a way to avoid this problem.
Yeah, I think in terms of I'm just going to bring in a question we've had actually from Rami Al-Jenni, who's asked about saying after watching yesterday's game he's still worried about the fullbacks on the left side, especially with Lulic, who can't play there at all, he says. This is, I suppose, something I mentioned after the Leverkusen game that I'm still a bit not convinced about, that being Lulic's best position in terms of his defensive capabilities. And like you say, if the battle plan is to drop deeper, so it's a kind of back five off the ball and soak up pressure, there are concerns for anyone who's seen Lulic play in the back four that is a bit of a weak area that other teams can exploit. I suppose one positive from yesterday is seeing Lukaku coming back again. But I think, I don't know if you agree, but I find it quite unlikely that he'll, go straight into the team for a game like Sunday against Juventus. But I think, again, it's just going to take time, isn't it? And you can see the plan, like we've said before, with Leva in the centre of the pitch yesterday. Marusic was quite impressive at getting forward in attack. And, what we've spoken about before is the fact that if you have someone like Luis Alberto in the middle of the midfield, or a more attacking three in the middle, then you kind of need your wing backs to be more defensively capable, which is probably more suited to Basta's game than Marisic's game. But Marusic looks pretty promising here. And we've had a couple of comments about that as well. Actually, Ibrahim Alberti saying, I think Marusic will surprise us this season. What do you think? And Rami Algendi again was saying he's very good in attack. Should he play as a right back or a right wing like Felipe? And I suppose, Vittorio, that's probably one of the greatest assets of having a player like Marusic, is that he's capable of changing that, changing his position. But for me, the right wing back role does seem like one that's quite suited to him from the little we've seen so far.
Well, I thought yesterday he was very good in doing both parts, both attacking and defending. He was very good. I remember him recovering a couple of good balls in the first half, especially. I really think that he could be the best signing of this summer for Lazio. And yesterday he played very, very well. And I still think he can grow because he has to get confidence and get used to play with new teammates. But I was really impressed. And he can play even on the left side, so that's a very good thing. I think he's really complete, and probably playing in the 3-5-2 is his best solution because he's good in attacking and defending. Yeah,
and something that you could see from the way he came forward is, you mentioned there he's going to need to build his way into the team and so on, but he did look pretty confident. He burst forward at one point and cut inside onto his left foot, and he was very close to scoring actually with a shot from his left foot. So it does seem like he is dangerous from either foot, and that capability of playing on either side and with either using both feet to good effect. I'm with you there. I think he could quite easily be the breakout star for us this season if he can continue that. You don't want to get too carried away too early, I suppose. But from what we've seen so far, you imagine he's the kind of player who could cause real problems to teams, particularly in the lower half of the league. The one question or doubt I have is how much Inzaghi will trust him in those big early games of the season. So against Milan and Napoli in the first 5 weeks, would Marusic be given that role from the start, do you think? Or will he, go with the tried and trusted with someone like Basta, who he knows what to expect from?
I think Inzaghi never was scared of giving a chance to a player. So if Marusic keeping playing like this, I think he will start in key matches. Probably the team we saw yesterday, with the exception of Keita, will be the team that will start against Juventus in the Supercoppa Italiana. So I think that was a test. And what I'm excited is thinking that in the near future we will playing with Marusic on one side and Lukaku on the other. It's going to be a nightmare for the other teams to defend.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like we've said after the Leverkusen game, then when you have someone like Leva who can protect that back three, that tactical model actually gives you enough protection, doesn't it? Because even if the opposition do win the ball back and they can move it quickly up the pitch, they still have 4 defenders to break through and the goalkeeper. So it does provide a lot of protection, as well as having those two. And I mean, Lukaku and Marusic in the same team, that's going to be a pretty attacking proposition. So I think in terms of what Rami Algendi's question there was, should he play as a right back or a right wing like Felipe? I think basically he will play as a right wing back, but his natural instinct to attack will see him in those right wing positions so often. I mean, it's early days, like we say, but you have to say it's been quite promising so far.
Yeah, and I still believe that, and he showed it yesterday, that he's able to defend. Of course, he has to find the right timing to attack, and of course to have time to come back and defend. But I'm confident that he's able to do both the two phases of football. And maybe with Lucas Leiva in the midfield, he will help him to give him the right tempo. So
that's a nicely timed comment, because I want to bring in the other question we've had here, which is from, well, I know he's got in touch to tell me how to say this, and I've forgotten. So it's Girk Stav. I think it's Greek Stavos, something like that. Apologies. Tell me again. I'll get it right next time. So he's asked about Lucas Leiva, saying some concerns were originally raised regarding Lucas Leiva's contributions to the attacking side of the game. Have those been allayed so far? So I suppose this is on the back of Lucas providing the assist for the goal yesterday, and a very good assist it was. You know, a good ball over the top, perfectly weighted to send Immobile through. I hope so. I mean, when we had Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap on, something we'd asked him about as well is the fact that Leiva has built this reputation as being someone who's a ball winner but not a creative player. I still wouldn't expect him to be tasked by Inzaghi as being a playmaker. I don't think, despite the assist yesterday, we're going to see him, performing Lucas Bilia's role in terms of getting his head up. But then it does show that he does have the technical skills to be capable of delivering that kind of pass when the opportunity presents itself. So in that regard, it's promising. But I still wouldn't say that I'm expecting his role to change massively from being the ball-winning midfielder he's known for being. I don't know if you agree.
Well, yesterday I was impressed by not only his assist, but he's already able to understand how Lazio play and try to make the ball move, and he can be a very good solution, because that assist was amazing, and he knows Lazio will play, and probably he won't be needed to do that often, but he has to provide the ball to Milinkovic, who yesterday didn't play very well, but especially to the wings, Marusic one side, Lulic on the other side, then probably Lukaku, etc. I think that's going to be his role. But one thing I want to point out, apart from the assist, is what he did in the first half. So there was this corner for Lazio. We have to talk about the corners later, because it has been terrible in this friendly. Keita put it in the middle, and of course Malaga recovered the ball and tried a counter-attack. And Lucas Leiva had a sprint of 5 meters, recovered the ball, and Lazio were attacking again. That was simply amazing, and that's something that will be fundamental for Lazio, because Lucas Biga was very good in the position, but not great in recovering immediately the ball. And if Lazio get that from Lucas Leiva, well, that's going to be a game changer for Lazio, especially thinking that in front you have Immobile, Felipe Anderson, Keita, all fast players. So that could be the idea, the plan that Simone Inzaghi has with Lucas Leiva.
Yeah, something else about yesterday's game that is kind of, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I mean, Keita did have a good game. I mean, he almost scored an absolutely spectacular goal. When he's dribbled it almost from the halfway line through the defence and hit the post. His link up with Immobile for the first goal, for the only goal, was very good, and it's kind of makes it more frustrating for me to see that happen in a way that he starts the game, he plays very well, and he doesn't seem, he didn't have his head down. He didn't look unsettled or unhappy, particularly to be there and be doing that. So the question is now, I suppose, because I personally I can see this transfer saga with Juventus dragging on until the end of the month. I'd still expect that he'll be gone by the end of the month, to be honest, but I think they'll probably leave it quite late. So the question then is Keita a player who Inzaghi's going to be looking to use, do you think? I mean, particularly when you have Felipe Anderson having some injury problems, do you think he'll be in line to start on Sunday against Juventus?
Well, one thing about yesterday is I thought Keita played a lot for himself. He didn't pass the ball often, and every time he tried to score just to prove that he was the key player, etc., etc. He can win matches alone, which it's something I don't like. You think about Felipe Anderson against Bayer Leverkusen. He often provided assists to Immobile. Then Felipe Anderson scored as well, but he's more a team player than Keita did yesterday. Felipe Anderson trained this morning, so he should be able to play next Sunday, but I still expect to have Keita in the bench, and if the situation required, I think Inzaghi will have no problem to make Keita play, to come in the second half and perform. At the end of the day, they're still professional players, and they'll try to do the best. I honestly think that he's going to leave Lazio at the end of August or something like that, which is a pity. But my biggest problem is if Taren Lotito has already the replacement in mind, or have already a deal like they did with Lucas Leiva, because that's going to be the biggest issue. If you sell Keita the last day of August and then don't find a replacement, that's going to be a problem.
Oh God! Don't even talk about it. You can see it happening already. It seems written in the stars that this is something that we've known is going to happen for months, for absolutely months. And at the same time, you're just waiting for that situation to happen. At the end of the month, Keita's sold. Juventus finally offer Lotito a price he likes, and he goes, and we don't have time to get anyone else in. I think. We'd originally planned on discussing this at the end of the show, but while we're on it, we might as well mention it now, because we have a question from Christian Rionaldo, who's saying, is there any chance to keep Keita and renew his contract? I think we've effectively already answered that during this discussion, though. I think it does seem pretty clear at this point that he wants to move to Juventus. Juventus want him, and it's more or less a question of if they can agree a price with Lotito. So I can't really imagine a situation at this point where he will sign a new contract and stay at Lazio and everything will be happily ever after. And that's a shame, given that, I get what you're saying about his performance yesterday, but he's always been quite a selfish player. So I didn't really notice that more than usual. I think he's a guy who likes to showboat and he likes to take things on himself, and he has that confidence, that kind of swagger about him. But that's always been something I've quite liked about his game. So, I don't think he'll be here by next month, but it'll be useful that he's an option and that Inzaghi's still capable of using him and he's not been frozen out of the squad. I think that's quite a positive thing.
Yeah, that's a good change, because we remember in the past how things were dealing with Lazio and Lotito. So the biggest problem, the thing that drives me crazy is that Lazio didn't even try to renew his contract. At least in the last month or so, there haven't been any contact. So I know that probably they're aware that he doesn't want to renew, but just try it, That's a little bit disappointing from my point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, not necessarily a big surprise. Right, let's leave Keita for now, because it's time for us to move on and look at next Sunday, because this is our first opportunity, Vittorio. It's very exciting to actually preview a proper match, a proper football match. So, well, I say a proper match. If we lose next week, I'm going to come back and say it's not a real trophy anyway. So, but if we win, it absolutely is. So Juventus, the opposition, obviously. I think we are all going into this fairly sceptically just because of the record. I mean, I had a quick look at this earlier. I knew our record against Juventus was terrible, but I wanted to find out what the actual numbers were. So we've lost the last 7 games against them in a row, and we haven't actually beaten them since January 2013 in the Coppa Italia, and so that's 14 games against them without a win. So they do say records are there to be broken, so that's a good thing. But how do you see this one going, Vittorio?
I'm not very happy that Juventus didn't perform very well in the friendlies, because now they want to prove everybody that they're still the team of last season, even though they lost Bonucci. So I would have preferred that Juventus beat Tottenham instead of losing, because that could be, a reaction in Sunday's match. From the other side, I probably think this is the weakest Juventus Lazio ever played. Every time Lazio played the Juventus, there was something that made Juventus play better. They were after a bad defeat, or they didn't win the last match, etc. So Lazio wasn't very lucky about that. But it looks like something's wrong there. Bonucci leaving, there's something in the locker room that didn't work. There are rumors of Dybala who wants to leave for Barcelona. So probably it could be the best time for Lazio to play against Juventus. I don't see it as impossible as it was, for example, for the Coppa Italia final in May. But again, you'll need a very good Lazio, and from the other side, you have to hope that Juventus will play a little bit like Tottenham. This 3-5-2 could help a little bit Lazio, because I think that playing like that could create some problem to Juventus. But again, I think Felipe Anderson will be fundamental. He has to play really well. And the defense this time doesn't have to make mistakes. They have to be perfect, because if you make an error with Higuain or Dybala, then you're going to pay for it. So.
Yeah, and we did actually play pretty well against them last season in Turin with the 3-5-2. I particularly remember that game, and we would have come away from that game with at least a point if it wasn't for an individual mistake. So it's a model that has worked against them before. I agree with you that they do seem more beatable now than they have done in the past. But you do also have to take a step back and look at it. Yes, they've lost Bonucci. That's a huge loss for them. And, the questions around how that ended up happening are still there to be answered. They've also lost Dani Alves. But then we're also talking about a team that's brought in Bernardeschi, Douglas Costa, Szczesny as their number 2 goalkeeper, Mattia Di Scilio. So, this is not a team that's been absolutely torn apart this summer by any means. It's still an incredibly strong squad, and they still have the same very, very talented, smart coach in charge of them. So I think Lazio will quite rightly begin this game as underdogs, but it is at the Olimpico, so it's effectively a home game. All these small things do come together to play their part, I suppose, in that the players will be on their own pitch in front of the Curva Nord, and at least we have that familiarity. That's one thing, but then you could easily say, well, we did in the Coppa Italia final as well, and look what happened there. But yeah, I think one thing I'd like to see is Lazio to go into this game with the same with the same confidence and the same kind of objective in mind, really, that they have in the warm-up games, because all too often I think Lazio coaches have altered things in order to take on Juventus. So I would quite like Lazio to concentrate on playing their own game rather than trying to nullify the dangers that they're going to face in Juventus. I mean, you could say you can get someone like Lucas Leiva and tell him, just man mark Dybala, just stick with him. But I think Lazio have enough talent now and a strong enough team that they can afford to concentrate on their own ability to win the match rather than just trying to counter Juventus' strengths.
Absolutely, and again, hoping to see Marusic and Milinkovic-Savic play at the best, Juventus will have some problems there because they are very strong players, they are talented, so Juventus has as well to think about the players Lazio will have in the midfield. Lucas Leiva probably will play, I think, from the start, and he can give a good protection to the defense. So that would help a little bit more Lazio. I expect something more from Felipe Anderson Immobile, because at the end of the day, you were talking about this match Lazio lost. One of the biggest issue is that pretty much in every match against Juventus, Lazio didn't have that many chances. It looks like Felipe Anderson against Juventus never played well. And you never know if this is because Felipe Anderson hasn't got enough personality to perform well against a top team, or the team were too much thinking of defending and didn't provide the right balls to Felipe Anderson to shine.
Yeah, and you don't want to see them isolated in the way that we have before. Often it's like I was saying, soaking up pressure against Juventus, and then when you do have the chance to break, you see, whether it's Anderson or Ciro Immobile, and they're just completely isolated. But the thing that I've mentioned before after the Leverkusen game, and I suppose it's the same against Malaga, is that when Lazio are capable of countering, to actually provide that support and make sure there are enough players who are committed to that attack. I mean, if you're talking about Dani Alves, for example, leaving that club and someone like Mattia Di Scilio coming in, Di Scilio isn't a particularly good player, in my opinion. I think if he starts at that right wing back position, that's something to target. That's kind of a weak spot, given the strength of the rest of Juventus' team. And even Alexandro on the left, he's a very talented player going forward, but he does like to go forward. So if you have someone like Marusic up against him, that'd be a very interesting battle. I think people have very quickly said, the breakup of the BBC with, Bonucci, Barzagli and Chiellini, they shouldn't pay too much attention to it because they have Rugani, Benatia, they have very good defenders waiting in the wings. But I think that is something that will hit them because they do have this experience and these kind of leaders, and they've bullied Lazio before. They really have. You have guys like Chiellini who can just bully Felipe Anderson out of the game.
And I think that Bonucci was the leader of that defense. Honestly, yeah. I don't rate Chiellini that great defender.
Chiellini is a warrior, isn't he? He's more of an old school defender. He's not the kind of gifted, passer of the ball in the way that Bonucci is, and with the great positional sense. But what he is brilliant at is being a physical nightmare for attackers. And if you let him play it his own way, you're going to struggle. And that's why Immobile needs the support of the guys around him, because if Immobile is up there against three, grizzled old Juventus defenders, he's not going to have a good time. So I really hope to see Lazio commit properly to these attacks and get out there and, like you say, try and create these chances in the way that they haven't done before.
And I think, and we didn't talk about it, but Marco Parolo could be a key player because he's very good to attack when Lazio have the chances, but at the same time he's good in finding his place when Lazio has to defend. So he can be give the right balance to Lazio to don't be too far away from Immobile and Keita and Felipe Anderson, but at the same time don't give too many chances of counter-attack of Juventus. So I think the fact that he missed the Supercoppa, the final against Juventus, this time he should be playing and should be fit. So this could be a big difference for Lazio. But again, we all know that if Juventus play their best, then there's not going to be a lot of chances for Lazio. But it looks like something have changed. And you were talking about the Sciglio. I think generally, all the players they bought this summer, there's not a player that you say, "Wow, this is a key player, a star player, a champion." No, Bernardeschi.
They've tried to pretend Bernardeschi is that player, but he's not. He's a poor man's Felipe Anderson.
Yeah, he didn't play that well. Douglas Costa could be a player that missed, but again, he's not a game changer. He's a good player with experience, etc. But you have to be honest and think that all these players they bought are more for improving the bench, have more option than changing the starting 11. But they still have lost Bonucci, so they will have to change something there. But again, with the Dybala and Higuain, you know that Juventus can score in every chance, every time they have the ball. So Lazio has to be very careful. But I think this is the time where Lazio has a bigger chance to win.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen now is that Bernardeschi and Costa are going to score twice, and then it's going to be 2-0.
Absolutely, first 5 minutes.
Exactly. But in terms of in terms of the team, the lineup, I mean, Radu had an injury problem. He came off early, but he seems to be okay. Anderson, like you said, I think he's been struggling, but he sounds like he should be okay from what I've read. Wesley Hoedt, I suppose, is the one who could perhaps miss out with a knee injury. Would you stick with the same starting lineup against Malaga, or probably put Felipe Anderson into that team ahead of Keita? What would be your team for this match?
Well, the biggest problem is Bastos, that is the player who performed very well against Juventus and probably is the best defender that adapt to the 3 defense, cannot play because he's qualified. So that really creates problem, because you have to hope Radu is fit to play. Otherwise, we don't have any much more option there in the defense. For the rest,
already we're already at
because
out of options after one game.
It is injured, or maybe he will recover. So you don't have that many options. And again, I thought Lazio should have bought another defender. Talking about the rest, maybe if Lukaku is fit, I would give a go to Lukaku in place of Lulic, because he didn't play very well against Malaga, Lulic. And of course, Felipe Anderson, who was astonishing against Bayer Leverkusen. He looks much more in a better condition now that Keita, and in that position, he could be really, really dangerous. I thought, honestly, that Inzaghi would have tried Luis Alberto and Lucas Leiva together, but now I think he considered them playing in the same position, so he will never try them together, which is a shame, because maybe they could benefit of playing together. You saw it in the match against Malaga. When Luis Alberto came in, Lazio were attacking more, while with Leiva, Lazio defense was much better. So apart from that, the question is, will Lucas Leiva be able to play all the match? Same thing about Marco Parolo, who we don't have to forget that started the training a little bit later for the problem he had at the knee. So those 2 players are important, and if Inzaghi play like that, knowing that we'll have to make 2 subs because of these 2 players not able to finish the match, then that could be a problem.
Yeah, I think Lulic will start on the left. I think it's probably too early for him to throw Lukaku straight in from the start. I suppose the other concern is if, like you say, if Leiva isn't able to play the full 90 minutes, and his natural replacement off the bench is Luis Alberto, then, like we've seen against Bayer Leverkusen, you suddenly have a very attack-minded midfield. So you almost think that, say Maricic starts on the right-hand side, you almost think that if Leiva comes off and Alberto comes on, you kind of have to perhaps rope in Marisic, it kind of takes away one of your attacking outlets to a certain extent, because I find it hard to imagine that. Well, obviously it will depend on how the first half or first hour of the match goes, however long it takes before Lucas would have to come off. But you find it hard to imagine that at that stage of the game, Lazio will be going ultra attacking, unless we're down by a goal or two.
But you have to think that Marco Parolo will play, and as I said before, he's the guy who keeps the balance of the team. And last time Luis Alberto didn't play with Parolo, but with Murcia, who is improving every day. Even yesterday he played really well. But Parolo gives that balance to the team that maybe Lazio is able to play with Marusic and Luis Alberto, with Parolo playing near them. So we have to see. Again, the other question is, will Parolo be able to play all match? As he didn't play a lot of matches this summer.
Yeah, well, it'll be very interesting to see the team he lines up with, and especially in defence, we really have to keep our fingers crossed that Radu will be okay to come in there. We did actually have Itano getting in touch with us to ask for our predictions, Vittorio. So you can go first.
Juventus winning 2-0.
I love your optimism. I think I can see this going into extra time. Personally, I think it might finish 1-1. And just to be optimistic, to counterbalance you, I'll say Lazio to win 2-1 after extra time.
Wow.
There we go. Get your money all on that. All your money.
I will.
Take your mortgage. Okay, well, yes, it'll be very interesting to see how that match goes. From both perspectives, to see where Juventus are too. But we do have a couple more questions to get through before we finish up. So we're going to have to go back to the Mercato, I'm afraid. We've had a question, just a general question, again from Rami Algendi, asking what do we think about the window so far. We've still got another 3 weeks or so to go. But, we've kind of covered this a bit already. But I think, like we've already said, Marisic seems to be a very good signing. Lucas Leiva is looking good. Haven't seen an awful lot of Di Gennaro to really know what kind of role he'll perform. So, in terms of the guys who've come in already, I think perhaps Felipe Caicedo apart, pretty happy. But it all goes down to this Keita deal and the reaction to it. Like we've said, if he is sold very late in the window and they don't have time to get a replacement in, then you have to say that the market's been a bit of a failure, because it's been so long, such a long time coming. So for me, the whole success or not of the market depends on how the Keita saga finishes up. I don't know if you agree.
I think for the moment the market has been good. Marusic, I already talked about him. He's going to be a big surprise. Lucas Leiva, he looks good. Di Gennaro, it's a little bit of a question, because if he has to play near Luis Alberto, then I think they are not compatible. Di Gennaro is another playmaker, so he can handle in certain matches, but we'll see. Caicedo, we have to see how he performs, but Lazio needed a player strong like him. And again, at the end of the day, we'll be seeing what happened with Keita De Vrij. If they leave, they have to be replaced by a good player. Now, the latest rumors was that Lazio would give a chance to Palombi if Keita leaves. Again, I like Palombi. He's been really good in the last matches or so, but I still think he'll need time to perform at the same level of Keita, and I don't think this team have time to. So I will still hope that Lazio find a replacement for Keita. And even though the market is positive at the moment, that could change dramatically if Keita leaves and no one comes in.
And it has to be it has to be an impressive. It has to be the big summer signing, basically, to put this in context. I think if Keita leaves, we're not just talking about bringing in a player to replace him of, say a Felipe Caicedo style signing. This needs to be the big transfer of the summer, the big money move, and the most impressive one, not only to fill his position in the squad, but to keep the fans happy and keep the positivity up in the group. And also within the squad, you would have thought if Keita goes out, the players are going to know what a big hole he will leave in that squad. But then again, if he goes out and we manage to bring in somebody with a good reputation and a good pedigree in the game, then that transition will be made very easy.
And go on, finish.
Sorry, you asked earlier about if Lotito would have someone lined up already to perhaps come in as soon as Keita's deal was finished. Yeah, I really hope they're thinking about this. I don't trust them, but I really hope Tare is having a look in the market to think about who's available and get those negotiations underway, because I'm terrified about this going completely wrong, because it would be typical,
Yeah, it's true that with Biglia, they've been very good because they had immediately Lucas Leiva, that was the perfect replacement. And the other thing is, don't forget that Lazio has still all the money from Lucas Biglia's deal to spend. So it's not that Lazio this time doesn't have the money for a big signing. They have. And I'm convinced that they're waiting because they want to buy a top player, or maybe two good players, because don't forget, if you sell Keita, then it's going to be another big money coming in. So, you could have something like 50 million euros to spend. So I expect maybe one is too much. I don't see Lazio spending 50 million for a player, but two good players, yes, absolutely. And that could make a massive difference, because if you put two top players in this team, then Lazio can really compete for the Champions League spot this season.
Yeah, I mean, to take out Keita and replace him, like you say, with two players, or say another striker to share the load with Immobile and maybe another winger attacking midfielder, people would finish the summer. And if you were asked before this summer if you thought you'd be happy after losing Biglia and Keita, you'd probably say no. But I think by this stage, having had the replacements in that we have already, plus a quality replacement for Keita, I think that it would be quite good business, actually. De Vrij is another question, I suppose. But at least there are, the narrative of this has turned to Lazio's potentially giving him a new deal, despite these rumours about him wanting to have a really low release clause in it, 10, 15 million euros.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, for me, I would still take that at this stage. I'd rather he signs a new deal with, say, a 15 million euro release clause that will at least keep him at the club for the next season, and then have the guarantee of getting at least some money for him. I'd rather do that than lose him for free or continue with this uncertainty over his future.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think we all agree that it's too low, but better 15 than nothing. So I would agree and try to sign him. Going back to Keita and Biglia, I think the thing that most disappoint fans is that one was the captain and never was clear since Lazio offered him a new contract in January. He never said, no, I want to leave, and then he find out that he said that he didn't want to stay. And with Keita, there's this disappointing because he came from Lazio Primavera. He should have had a little bit of, feeling for Lazio, for what Lazio did for him. Instead, he doesn't care and wants to leave. So it's disappointing. Then we can say that there are a lot of Keita around the world, a lot of good players that can replace him. He's not the only one. And to be honest, that was the first year he really played well, and he didn't even play all year long that well. So the biggest disappointment is how things are going, why the players didn't want to stay with the club and things like that. But I still think that Lazio can find good replacement for them.
Yeah, I mean, this brings me neatly on to our final question this week, which is from Ibrahim El-Beti again, who's saying, why do we always sell our stars? We have to keep them and bring in strong players and not sell them. I suppose this summer's been a particularly bad example of that because we've got three star players that we've been talking about leaving. And yeah, he's right. It's not the first time that star players have left Lazio. I think for me it comes back to, well, it's a few things. It's the fact that the club Lotito will accept big fees for players. He's very good at striking a hard bargain, but he does like the money. So if it does come in, he will probably take it. Then there's the bigger question of players perhaps seeing Lazio as a stepping stone in their career, rightly or wrongly. I think that's probably what a lot of players like Stefan de Vrij might think of Lazio as being, as a way of moving further up in the European football hierarchy. And I think that's probably just down to the fact that the club aren't providing a sustained challenge at the top of the league and managing to kick on in the way that Napoli have done, for example, and be up there with Scudetto ambitions every year instead of having a good season followed by a bad season. I think it comes down to this whole thing of needing to really invest in the squad in order to sustain that challenge. And once you have, it all comes down to results and trophies, and that's what players like. So if we're getting results and we're getting trophies, then the star players will be more inclined to stay. And when you have the star players staying, you're more likely to bring in other star players. That's simple.
Neymar left Barcelona. That tells everything. The players have so much power now that you can offer whatever you want. But if they want to leave, they leave. And that's the biggest problem. Unfortunately, Lazio had a lot of players that wanted to leave. Biglia situation. I think the players come out very, very bad. He was the captain. The team trusts him. And he simply decided that want to leave. Even if Lazio offer was good, I don't think Milan made a much improved offer. Simply he want to leave and get more money. And same thing with Keita. It's very disappointing. But then think about Milinkovic-Savic. He doesn't want to leave. Juventus made the 50 million offer and he's still at Lazio. It depends a lot on the player. If Keita wants to leave, he can say he doesn't renew the contract, he's free in 1 year time. Or he doesn't perform, he doesn't train, so the club has to sell him. Unfortunately, at the moment, players have so much power that they can do what they want. And that creates problem to the club. Just think Neymar. But think even about Juventus. Pogba left and he was the star player of that team. Morata came back to Real Madrid. There are a lot of things happening. Bonucci wanted to leave. And you cannot say that Bonucci wasn't a top player of Juventus. Simply, the players now are so powerful that they decide what to do. And the club have just to try to get the best out of it. So yeah, probably the fact that Lazio doesn't win that much doesn't help. But, sorry, repeat me how many tournaments, how many cup Milan won in the last 5-6 years? I don't remember. I don't think that much, But everybody's going to Milan. Come on, it's only money. It's getting more money. So
yeah, it's money, but then I suppose it's the trophies that win you the money, isn't it? It's the results on the field that ultimately dictate how much money you're going to get. I mean, not in the case of Milan, obviously, because they've got these Chinese owners who have come in. So perhaps that's what Lazio need, is a new owner. I think that's an idea that nobody would agree with me about, but maybe under Claudio Lotito we're stuck in this cycle, really.
Hey, if someone of our followers is a rich Arabic, Lazio, please buy Lazio, please. We are here asking,
or
begging.
Maybe we'll begin a Lazio Lounge fund. So everybody send us €50 and we'll eventually buy Lazio.
But again, think of how many final Biglia played for Lazio and lost. A little bit of his fault in that a little bit. But anyway, he's not with us anymore, and that's disappointing. But I don't think in the last year there is Lotito to blame. Probably before, yes, but in the last year a lot of things have changed. Unfortunately, players want money, and doesn't get affected to teams as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. With all this Neymar stuff going on, you've seen a lot of, the world transfer record has been in the news a lot, and you look back at that for the last, 20 years, and Lazio's name appears twice in that list. A world record signing and a world record sale, and it's
good memories.
But again, Craniotti's time at the club, although it brought fantastic success, it does go to show that how quickly things can go wrong, I suppose, when it's all about the money and the big spending. So
that's Lazio, why we need an Arabic rich man to buy Lazio.
We do. So everybody, get your contacts book out and get having a look, and then all our problems will be solved.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think we've just sorted out Lazio's problems.
We should get revenue out of that.
Yeah. Right, well, that's all our questions dried up for this week. So anything else you're wanting to discuss, Vittorio, in particular?
No. Next time is going to be after the Supercoppa. Wow, I'm excited.
You're excited about the 2-0 defeat?
Yeah, I'm worried, but because again, as I was saying before, if Juve had won the last 3 friendly match, they would think, okay, nothing changed. We are still a very good team. Instead, they're performing bad. They're losing, so they want to prove everybody that when there's something real to compete, they're going to play well. And unfortunately, they're playing against Lazio. Yes,
they're always a hard team to get. They're always the team we get in these big matches, generally. So it's not going to be easy. But I'm trying to remain as optimistic as I can because the season's not even started yet. So we may as well pretend that everything's going to be okay.
Okay, perfect. So we can wrap it up here?
Absolutely. Thanks very much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Braveheart.
Looking forward to the next one.
Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about finally an official match. And maybe a new signing, who knows?
I wouldn't get ahead of yourself there.
Thank you very much, Alistair, and talk to you next Sunday.
Looking forward to it. See you then.
Bye-bye.